Hello, everyone. Today is November 17th, 2022. This is the Kubernetes storage SIG meeting. Today, we're going to go over 1.26 planning spreadsheet. And then we have a design topic today. We'll go over that one later. Okay, so let's look at this one first. The first one is a delegate FS group to CSI driver instead of kubelet. Do we have Fabio or Herman here? Okay. I think code is all merged. It's just the doc PR now. Doc PR. And the next one is recover from resize failure, ETV tests. Is Herman as well? Okay. I'll just see an update. Third one is issues related to assuming volumes are mount points. Do you have a Xing here? Let's not do it again. Next one is CSI F1 volumes. This is the wrap-up conformance test. Is Jonathan on the call?
Hi, yeah, I just joined. This one's complete. The PR to promote to conformance is already merged.
Great. All right, so I think we can mark this one as done. Thank you.
This is Hemant, by the way. I joined a little bit late. Yeah, the delegate FS group is done.
Okay, so we still have doc, right? The doc also merged?
Doc was probably not merged.
Okay, so I just that is add a doc PR in review. Do you know if there was a blog placeholder, right?
There was a blog post placeholder also. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think let's see, what's the deadline? Let's just take a look at the next deadline. I think the doc PR ready for, okay, so this one passed, which is 15th. But I think the doc is already being reviewed, so I think that's okay. And the doc ready to be merged date is also the state. I think it's 29th. I'll double check that. I think this is the right doc PR ready to merge. Yeah, so please address comments on the docs as soon as possible. And also for the blog, please try to fill in the content since this is ready to review date is coming.
Okay. All
right, thank you. And this one, do you have an update on this one, Herman? This is the ETV test for the what is that? The retry fail, the recover from resize failure.
Yeah. So I actually so this is I'm doing where I have not finished yet, but I opened a PR, like a dependency PR. I opened yesterday. Basically, the CSI mock volume, that file is growing like anything, and it's like I refactored that code to make it easier. So because my changes depend on that file. So we have one mock file which includes test for resizing, snapshotting, capacity, like every feature on earth. So I'm just trying, I have opened a PR to refactor that first, and then I'm working on the E2A. Like I should have it done by tomorrow or so.
Oh, okay. And then your refactor PR, is that still work in progress or that's already done?
That's done. It's ready for
okay.
review.
Just need to review. Okay, so you need to reviewers. Okay, we can probably add that one Yeah, we can, if you have a link, we can add that one. We do have a,
Yeah.
there's a board where we add PRs there. Okay.
I will add it
All right.
there.
All right, thank you. And has Xing joined? All right. To this one, the voting group, this one I have not got no update yet. I need to get back to this one. And next one is provision volumes from cross namespace, snapshot, and PVC. Yeah, for this one, I actually got an update from Takafumi. Let's see, that's what he said. I need to check what was the message. He said, API, okay, API and API code is merged, right? So it said API code merged, doc, PR in review. I thought you didn't mention I thought we still have the PR in the external provisioner. Is it Michelle here?
Yes, that's right.
So, okay, PR in external provisioner still in review. And you said there's also another PR needed, right? The voting populator, there's another.
Yes.
Okay. Voting populator. Is that also in review or is that still?
I haven't seen a PR for populators yet.
Oh, okay. I
I
remember seeing something.
haven't
long time.
checked.
Oh, okay. I
I
remember
also
seeing
haven't checked.
something long time ago. I don't know the status. Yeah, there was I remember someone submitted something long time ago, but not sure whether it's up to date or not. I'll just say pending. All right, thank you. Anything else for this?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Next one, voting house. So this one also we need to add E2E test. So Ran says he's going to submit a PR. So I'm waiting for that. I'll check with him. And next one, okay, new rewrite on the access mode E2 test. Is this is it done, Michelle? What is the merged? Okay, merged. Test merged. Do we have anything else for this, or this is we are kind of done for this release, the E2 test?
That's a good question. I will sync up with Chris and see if there's anything else. The E2E test was the main thing, but I think he also wanted to make some improvements to the scheduler logic.
Oh, okay.
But that's not like a strict requirement.
Okay. We don't know if there's any progress on that one yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's fine. It's not going to block for the next release.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. Does this also need like metrics before this one going to this going beta? But I think that one can be added later though.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is a runtime assisted mounting. Do we have deep here? Or Yang, do you know the status of this? Or is Yang not here?
Yeah. It's a holiday in Czech Republic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Deep was in the CSI community meeting the other day. He was saying it's actually on good track. Basically, got some comment from SIG node side. Anyway, I think let's see what this says. Okay, so it looks like it's the same from this one. Runtime class suggestion. Okay, I'll just say same as last time. Oh, I think he was calling for reviews, I think. Reviews. He's asking people to review the cap. Like. And next one is the CSI proxy for Windows transition to privileged containers. Is Mauricio here? Or Michelle, do you know what's the status for this one?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
I know there's been PRs out, but I don't know if they've been merged yet.
Okay. But we're not really following the like the release deadline, right? So this is kind of
Yes.
so yeah.
That's
okay.
right.
Next one is proxy performance issue. Yeah, don't think anyone is working on this. So next one is a node expansion secrets E2E test. I believe Michelle, you said someone is interested in this one, right? Is working on the
Yeah,
test.
they're interested, but I don't know if they actually have time.
Oh,
I need
okay.
to follow up again.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll just send an update. And the next one is the secure Linux relabeling. Okay, so Yang is not here. Anyone want to give an update on this one? Herman, do you know? Or is the same as last time?
I think all the PRs that were there for volume reconstruction and SLNX handling for CSI drivers, which was missing. So all those are merged.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think there's any like pending blog. I don't know if he signed up for it, but
Okay.
yeah,
There's a
that.
Oh, I think he's not writing. Yeah, he did not opt in. This one I know. He's probably waiting for when this one moves to beta, right? This one is alpha, right? But I think there is still a cap, right? Is that one merged? There's an update to cap. I'm not sure if that one. Maybe that one is not merged.
Kept for what? Like it was alpha
It's
and
the
last
same.
release.
Yeah, so it's basically just he updated it based on the volume reconstruction change, but that PR I'm not sure. But that's not like it's not like urgent. It's just he want to update the cap after this volume reconstruction thing is in. That's
Yeah.
That one I'm not sure. Maybe not merged yet. Yeah, but it's not like it's urgent. Okay. Yeah, I think we are good. The main thing is that big volume reconstruction PR, right? So that one is merged. So that's good. Okay, so CSI migration. So CSI migration vSphere. Yeah, so this one is merged. Code merged. Basically, the doc PR is in review. And next one. Oh, okay. So I think this one, the remove entry Azure disk. I believe Andy did not do that because we are having some questions. Well, Michelle, we'll basically just, I think we have to wait until next release, right? This is the this is the Azure disk. It's been 2 weeks, but I think we have already passed the deadline.
So we'll do it next.
Yeah. Okay.
Next release. That's fine.
27. All right. And Azure file, I think this one we're good, right? I think the code is merged. Doc PR is still there, I think, in review. And then the rest of those, I think, yeah, those actually did not make it. So I think we have this one here to track tests. We need to have each test, right? This one. Yeah, so this one did not make it. We didn't get the test ready by the merge deadline. So this one is moved to 1.27. And next one, CFFS, this one is also moved to 1.27. And this one, GlassFS, so yeah, this one is done. I think we need to, okay, there's a doc, right? Okay, I need to check the doc. I forgot about this doc. I don't know if it's merged or not. But there's a doc there. And then the next one is always owner reclaim policy. Is Deepak here? So I think he's making some changes in the, I don't know if it's either in the external provisioner or is in the provisional lib. So I think he's still working on code changes. Oh, sorry, let me actually check and see. This one says code merge. Okay, I need to check with him. I'm not sure. I thought he's still working on something. I don't know which one he's working on. But the test is not there yet because we're waiting for, because the test will be added auto tree. So we're waiting for this this work that Ronak is working on next. Okay, we can cut this one next. So two tests are pending. The next one is volume mode conversion between source and target. So yeah, this one's still. I don't think we can make it, but I'll keep it like this for now. But I think he's Ronak is working on adding the E2 test. It's getting very close, but I think it's not out yet. Still waiting for E2 test. And the next one is non-graceful no shutdown. Okay, so this one is done. This one, this one code merged. Doc, PR interview. Also there's a blog PR that I need to fill in details. And the next one is enable user namespace. Is this the one that we're going to talk about later? Hamad, was the same one or was it a different one?
Looks same. What was the 2033 enhancement ID?
Okay, so maybe we'll talk about this one later.
That's.
Oh no, it's not the same.
No, that's different.
Username. No, okay, I'll just say it then. Oh, not sure what this one is. No update. And next one is PVC created by stable set, will not be auto removed. Matt?
Yeah, so this ended up not making the deadline. A bug
Did you?
had been
I thought
found
you
at
applied
this meeting.
for exception, right? It's not approved.
Correct. A bug was found after the exception, and in discussion with Jordan, we decided to wait.
Okay, great. Okay. Wait, we'll just say move to 1.26, 1.27. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we change this one to alpha then, right? And the next one, one expansion for stateful set. Is there any progress on this one, Hemant? Or
No, I don't have any update on that today.
Okay. All right, thank you. And the next one is a better default storage class. So Yang is not here today. Is Roman here? So I believe the code is merged, doc PR is review, and there's also a placeholder log PR. Okay, that's what I know. Okay, so that's all we have here. Now let's come back. So we have this topic here. Do we have a so Rata and sorry, I'm not sure how do you pronounce this one. Gisep. Is anyone talking? I couldn't hear anything. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Please talk. Yeah, you added a lot of notes. Yeah, please go ahead and can you yeah explain this issue and
maybe Rodrigo is I think he's trying to talk.
oh, is there any problem with the mic?
Yeah. Oh.
Is it who is trying to talk? Is it Rodrigo or?
Yeah.
But okay, couldn't hear anything. Okay, let's see. There's something in the chat. Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There was an issue with my Zoom configuration. Yeah, sorry. So we wanted to join the SIG storage to talk about how we are planning to handle storage in pods with user namespace support. So the situation we're currently at is we merged support for stateless pods in Kubernetes 125. We handle only very simple volumes where the lifecycle of the volume is tied to the lifecycle of the pod. So like config map, secret.
Before you go talk about, can you just briefly describe what this cap is about? I don't think many people have read the cap. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is cap number 127.
Okay.
And it's about creating pods with user namespaces. So currently pods have a network namespace, a mount namespace. We're adding the capability to have a user namespace.
Okay.
To that, the only change in the pod spec is just a host users field. So if you set it to false, you don't use the host users and a new user namespace is created. The challenge here comes because when you create a user namespace, you create a mapping from the user inside the container to the user outside the container. And so when you are trying to use volumes, if you don't use any kernel support to facilitate this, the volumes need to be, like the files that you read need to be using the ID that is assigned to you, mapped to you as the host user. And that is the solution we started with. So the files created by the kubelet for a config map, a secret, or a projected API volume when mounted, we're creating them with the proper UID. So it works inside the pod with user namespaces. But during the review, I think Herman from SIG Storage suggested that we just drop that part of the code and rely on FS group. That part was maybe problematic because we changed config map secrets and everything to honor the FS user field that can be specified, and today it's not honoring it. So that change had bigger effects that just being used when user namespaces are in use. So we switched to FS group, and we didn't change that. The thing is that FS group is not ideal because it forces you to always have permission for the node. So things like SSH keys or things like that, where a library or an application expects some permissions to not be granted to the group, won't work. So we wanted to discuss here the solution that we're thinking about to remove this limitation in this alpha feature, that is to use a new kernel feature that is called ID map mounts. So basically, what we have in mind is to instruct the container runtime to create all the bind mounts using the mapping for the user namespace. And when you do that, you don't need to change the ownership of the files and volumes and whatever, because the kernel will do that conversion using the mapping of the user of the mapping of the user namespace.
This is Hemant here. So the reason like we kind of did not we had to ask you to drop that change where we were applying FS user was there was some issues around like traditionally not everything is permissions are driven by FS group in Kubernetes for all the storage volumes. Now, I don't remember if FS user was like pod, like there are issues that we have to figure out about two pods, for example, can specify same FS group and share the volume. Or
yes.
And then so those are the issues. And then second one was like, I don't remember top of my head, but like, can you specify different FS user for different containers and the same volume? So one container can, if you apply,
no, FS user is per volume.
Okay. And yeah, so we were hoping that the whole design of like how the FS user based permission will work, it like maybe it requires a separate KEP actually, rather than putting it as part of that user namespace 137 change.
Right. I understand the complexity if we're going to change the ownership of the files. However, what we're proposing here is to not do that and just instruct the container runtime to use the same mapping for the mounts. So basically, we don't have to do any more changes in the kubelet. We won't be changing that at all. Just when you create the mount, like this is a special bind mount using the new bind mount, the new mount API. You can specify a mapping, and therefore the kernel will do the translation for you when you read a file or when you create a new file. So we don't need to change that complicated part at all if we go through with ID map mounts. That's our.
Does it require the user namespaces to also be work, or is this an independent feature from user namespaces?
No. It's a feature to make user namespaces work. Like if we don't.
But if
we don't do anything about volumes, you cannot have a pod with user namespaces and volumes. So we need to do something.
Does it require user namespaces to work? Does it depend on user namespaces, or is it the other way around?
No, none of those options are true. It doesn't require user namespaces to work, and you don't need user namespaces to use ID map mounts. The Linux kernel feature ID map mounts doesn't require that you're running inside a user namespace. It's just an ID mapping conversion that is very convenient to use with the same mapping that you use in a user namespace, and it was created to solve these problems that we have with user namespaces and volumes, but none of the features requires the other.
I guess the next question was like, will this feature, this change require users to enable user namespace feature in Kubernetes? I know that ID map mounts doesn't necessarily need user namespace, but will this change that you're proposing will require that feature to be enabled in Kubernetes?
Yes, I'm not sure I follow the question. So the thing is, when you set the feature in Kubernetes to like, I want a user namespace for this pod, then in the CRI interface, to communicate with the container runtime, we'll send a message saying like, use this mapping and whatever, and the container runtime will use the mapping for the mounts too. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I understood it correctly.
So we are proposing that we can solve this problem, this whole FS group, by using ID map mounts. I'm just trying to ask, like, will this be feature gated? This change, like ID map mounts, applying ID map mounts in Kubernetes, if you're, because I don't see in it'll be
yes, this will be feature gated with the username spaces feature gate, and the changes like the kubelet or no Kubernetes component will do an ID map, will create an ID map mounts. It will just send the necessary things over the CRI interface. So the container runtime that today is who does the bind mounts, to do the bind mounts using an ID map mount.
Okay, so using ID map mounts will require, like, if that feature will require user to enable the user namespace feature gate in Kubernetes. Okay.
Yes, the only way to use an ID map mount would be through a pod with user namespaces enabled. That's what we're thinking.
Is the all the details of ID map mounts captured in the enhancement, or is just in Google Docs? This stuff.
Yeah, no. So the cap doesn't. So we wanted to discuss early with SIG storage our plans. So if this makes sense to SIG storage, we'll create a proof of concept of the code, and then update the cap with the very specific changes that we need to do this properly. But we wanted to know if this feature, this overall direction makes sense before we spend so much time, like several weeks, working on this.
I mean, I think getting rid of the recursive chown, I think, is always good.
But no,
so
wait.
they're two different things, because that was one thing we kind of discussed in the PR for CAP 127 too. So I think their use case is different. So basically, whatever mappings that are provided when using user namespaces, those can be used for the FS mapping, the FSID mapping, but that doesn't help with the recursive chown. And I'm still looking into that. Like I've been looking at that this week, but what we would need to get rid of the recursive chown is basically a way to say squash all these IDs into one single ID, which is different from their use case for user namespaces.
Yeah, and for your use case, ID map mounts won't work because it doesn't allow to squash multiple IDs in a single one.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I was playing with the kernel interface to see if there was a way to add that, but that's still early.
Yeah, there is no way to do that. It's like a requirement in the user namespaces, like each ID in a user namespace must be mapped to a single ID outside, and the same structure is maintained for ID map mounts. So because it will be confusing for the kernel, like let's say that it allows to squash everything to the single ID, but then when it goes to write back the file on the storage, it doesn't know to what ID map back.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, basically what you need for the mapping is to be a math bijection. So, and what you're proposing, the function that you're proposing from IDs to a single one is not a bijection. So yeah, there's no way to make it work.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, bottom line, this won't help with the recursive chown problem at all. I think they're solving a different problem.
Completely independent problems. Yeah.
So I guess so if I also understand, I guess then this ID map, it doesn't really do anything in the case when you're not using user namespaces.
Yes, it does the same ID map.
But what does it map if, like, there's no mapping if you don't use user namespaces.
No, there's all, if you create a mount with a mapping, there's the mapping that will be used for that mount. So, but yeah, most use cases are with user namespaces, but for, I don't know, for example, systemd login uses ID map mounts without user namespaces because it creates ephemeral IDs, and then, for example, it supports that you can have your home directory in a on different machines, and you log in with different IDs. So instead of doing a chown, it just mounted with a different mapping, but it doesn't solve the problem that you try to solve with the recursive chown because there's always a bisection. So yeah, you can use it definitely without ID mapping, but
yeah,
you have a weird use case if you use it.
Yeah, the difference is that systemd is using one single ID, so it can do that. It's a restricted version of your use case because it uses just a single ID, so it can take.
Jonathan, can you explain why we need to squash the IDs actually to support what Kubernetes wants to do?
So for FS group, kubelet will just do a chown on any file that doesn't match the ID. So it's effectively squashing everything into the single ID that's provided by FS group. And there's not a way to signify that with ID mapping. You have to, like he said, you have to provide a one-to-one mapping. And there's a limit to the number of mappings that you can provide. You can specify 340 mappings. So there's not really a way to say, I want every single ID mapped to this one ID. And even if there were, that would conflict, and it wouldn't allow it.
But I guess would it solve the case where you might have like multiple pods that use the same volume but specify different FS groups?
Yes, it could help in that case.
It can help in that case only if all the GIDs used are the same. Or in that volume.
Yeah, I mean, the cases I've seen in practice of FS group is people aren't squashing IDs. They just, like, everything is a group, the same group, it's just the wrong one. And it sounds as if the mapping would work in that case. Like,
yeah,
to move 300 to 200.
Yeah, I think the main use case was like, you know, in the past, we cautioned a lot against supporting FS group for NFS because we didn't want to, you know, because NFS is widely shared across multiple pods, and we didn't want to get into a case where like two pods specified different FS groups and then end up like, you know, flipping the volume permissions back and forth all the time.
Yeah, so basically if the volume was heterogeneous, like it has some files inside are owned by user ID 2000, some are owned by 3000, then the kernel using ID map mounts won't squash everything to one. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to take over the user namespace discussion, but I suppose there's a way we could still use it for the FS group thing if we essentially do the recursive chown once and then use ID mapping after that, but that's a totally different enhancement.
No, but it touches on this because the ID map mounts, so if we use ID map mounts for the user namespace, that means that whatever is being mapped to, that user must already have permission to read write files on the kernel and on the host. So let's say like user namespace inside the container, like the shifted UID is 20,000, and then the files are actually owned by 2000 user, like the UID. Or it's not owned by 2000, but it's maybe owned by root, like in default configuration. Then how will this ID map mount work? That's what I was trying to.
That is completely out of the scope for user namespaces.
Okay.
So the idea is, if you use a user namespace and you mount using the same mapping, if you're running as user 0 inside the container, then the file created on the file system, if you look at the inode, the UID will be 0.
Yeah.
So basically, if you can access the volume without user namespaces, you can access the volume with user namespaces and ID map bounds. And if you cannot access the volume without user namespaces, well, we don't care, you need to fix it. And when you fix it, like we are not trying to solve the problem of any chown. To solve the problem of any chown, FS group or other things need to be used, and those things work correctly if mounted with ID map mounts. Like there's no mapping to take into account, the kernel is taking into account just when you read or write to that mount.
I guess I don't understand then because the kubelet is only going to apply FS group. It's not going to change any UID based permissions. Actually, it's only going to chown based on the FS group.
Yes.
And so if
FS group refers to an ID inside the container, right?
And yeah, but this your proposal also trying to solve the problem of like SSH keys and whatnot. So they're not like group readable and group writable. That assumes that on the host there is specific UID that has the permissions to read write the volumes, and that's where it will be ID map to. So it's like there's a user called 200 that can read write those files, and then inside the user namespace, or like it will be mapped to that user. So
no, the only assumption is that the user inside the container, the UID or GID inside the container is the UID or GID of files in the volume. That's the only assumption. It doesn't map to user 2000 or not.
Okay.
But I think the question is nothing in kubelet today modifies the UID of volumes. So there might be a step.
Sorry, nothing kubelet today modifies the UID or the GID?
UID. Like for secret volumes today, we don't set UIDs on the files.
No, yes, the kubelet modifies the UID for projected service accounts tokens. That's
yes,
what.
But not for anything else.
No. So what is the problem there?
So when you go ahead.
So when you use ID map mounts and you try to like what this ID map will mount to, because there's no single UID to which this which will have permission to read write or read those volumes, because kubelet is not touching the UID of those volumes.
Yeah, no, so exactly. So let's see, for example, a simple example. For example, etc host or etc result.conf are files that are created in the host, are owned by root in the host. And if you start a pod with user namespaces and you don't use ID map mounts, those files will belong to a user that is not mapped inside the container, because root in the host is not mapped in the user namespace. So you cannot modify those files. If instead, when that bind mount is done for etc result.conf, it's done with the ID map mount, you will see that the file is owned by root inside the container, because the kernel is doing the ID map translation. And this very same thing happens with any other volume that you mount. The IDs are just mapped in that way. So if you want to read a file, the process inside the container must be running as a user inside the container that matches permission-wide what is written in the file system in the volume. If those things happen, that needs to happen to any pod with volume, then you can read it. Otherwise, you cannot.
In that case, does the ID map mount require like map this to like kernel ID 0? Like that ID map mounts system call that takes 2 argument, right? The UID and then the kernel ID, and then there's a range. So for example, like taking etc host or etcresult.conf, which is owned by or only like 0 kernel user UID can read them. So does this mean that the ID map mount will mount something to 0 inside the kernel? Like what will be the
No,
ID
it's
map
exactly
mount?
the opposite. It's not something mapped to 0. It's
Mhm.
exactly the other way around. It's that 0 inside the container is mapped to some user, some umbrellas user, let's say 6555536 is mapped to that user. So
Okay.
when you use that mapping to read, then when you're reading a file that is owned by root, it will be automatically translated to 65536. And therefore, as you're running as that user, you can see it. The kernel handles all the translation for you, but it's exactly the other way around. So it does the translation following one direction from the container to the host when you read a file, and in the other direction when you're writing. So basically, it all works. It was created basically to solve the problems containers have with user namespaces and volumes. Does it make sense? Am I clear? Or? So yeah, so coming back to the doc, so we switched to FS group, and yeah, we would like to get rid of S group because of these limitations. And there are also these other limitations like etc host, etc result.conf are owned by root in the host. So today, when you create a pod with user namespaces, you cannot edit those files. And we plan to, we're proposing to use ID band mounts for the bind mounts when using when user namespaces. This will be done by the container runtime, and yeah.
I guess my other question is is this beneficial to use even without user namespaces? Because we do have a long-standing bugs around supporting UIDs on secrets and config maps too.
I don't know enough about the issues that you face. The
Sure.
issue
Let me
to put all the UIDs as one. No, it doesn't help. But what does it change if it helps for any other issue or not?
I think the main thing is like, I think we are interested in solving the UID permission problem, even without user namespaces.
Yeah.
And so if there is a solution that could handle both cases, I think that would be ideal.
Well, even if ID map mounts helps with that or not, adding support for ID map mounts with user namespaces will definitely not solve it. Like that is a different problem, right? That will need a different cap and a different considerations, motivations, migrations, feature gates, and everything.
So, and to be clear, it's also a different interface. Like the mappings that you provide in a user namespace, that's what you're proposing would be used for the mount mapping as well, right?
Yeah, well, that is open for discussion. Like we can change the CRI interface to specify one mapping per mount. So it could potentially be a different mapping for different things. Or we can just keep it as it is today, and in the future, if you find that ID map mounts and like using different mappings for different volumes will have some volume, then we can add that field too.
Yeah, it can be something incremental because we could add this later, or if you prefer, we can add it now. But internal in the CRI, but even if it's not used with user namespace.
But regarding the using ID map mounts for user namespaces, is there any concern from SIG storage? Or something to take into account, something that needs more discussion, something that is not clear?
I think from my perspective, I think I need to understand this ID map a little better. Like, do you have a write-up that can maybe have a little more detail and maybe like a diagram or something, and maybe that'll help me understand sort of the problem that we're trying to solve? Because I am very interested in also solving the general case of user ownership.
Yes, okay, yes, so I can send you the kernel documentation for the feature. It's, yeah.
Can you just add it to this agenda doc so everyone can take a look?
Yes, I can add it to the agenda
yeah.
doc.
And also you mentioned you wanted to do a POC. So does everyone, Michelle, Hemant, Jonathan, do you guys think that's it's fine just for them to do a POC and then maybe they can come back and talk about it, or what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I think I want to understand like how the FS group, like I know it's kind of orthogonal to this, the ID map mount, but how does interact with ID map mounts? Like what will be kubelet be doing and what CRI will be doing? Like the responsibilities, how it will be, like it's right now it's not clear to me, because we're saying, okay, the CRI will do the ID map mounts, and what do we expect kubelet to do? I just need to understand. I need to understand
Yeah, so the proposal is to not change anything in that front. The only change is that the bind mounts will have an ID map. The kubelet will continue to do the same that it does with FS group if user namespaces is in use or not. We're proposing to not change anything of that.
So maybe it's good that if you can just do a write-up, then help people review it. Otherwise,
how will it solve your problem of FS group, like volume? If you're saying that, okay, we will not change anything in kubelet, then surely like kubelet will do this recursive ch1 chmod, and the permission will be 775 still, right? Even if you ID map mounts.
Yeah, so if the user requests FS group, then FS group will be used with the downside that FS group has. What we want to do is that if a user doesn't specify FS group, you don't use it. Today, if the user doesn't specify FS group, we set it to the same user that is the host GID, so we do some conversion, and it's the same as if the user set it. So the problem with FS group will be solved because when it's not used, it won't have any effect. Right now, when you don't specify it in the pod spec, it's like underlying we are using it. It's the same as if it was set.
Yeah. So, but basically, we want to use ID mapped mounts to solve an issue that we created with user namespaces. Like the kubelet will still think in from the host point of view, like the same for any IDs it's using. It won't have to worry how the IDs will look inside the user namespace. So it will look exactly how it looks today without user namespaces. The problem that we have with user namespaces is that once we set, the kernel does the translation of IDs internal. So if a file on a volume is owned by root on the host. Then once we use a user namespace inside the container, it will look owned by a user that it's not part of the user namespace, so it does the unknown ID. So what we want.
I'm sorry, sorry to cut you off. We are on the top of the hour. I need to, yeah, I need to close on this meeting and start another meeting. So do you guys want to share a doc here, and then maybe people can review the doc and give more comments?
Okay.
And you can.
How shall I share the doc?
Oh, you can add it.
In a
You
note?
can add it. Yeah, just add it here. Add a
Okay.
link in this agenda doc.
Okay.
People can review that, and then maybe you guys can come back again. Or maybe we need to have a separate meeting to just discuss. It looks like there are still a lot of concerns. Maybe
Okay.
start with the doc, and then people read the doc, then maybe understand more of what you're trying to do. Yeah, let's start from there. We can also chat on Slack and decide, you know, the next steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.